In this video, I'm going to provide a brief overview about arrays and array lists and show the difference between both of them. So array and array list are both data structures that allow to store a sequence of elements. And the difference between both is that arrays, they have static length, which is fixed, cannot be changed during the program. And the array list, it has a dynamic length. It means that the length can change as long as we add or remove elements. So for example, if we have an array of int array, okay, it is declared using the keyword new, and then we specify int, and then we specify the number of elements. For example, I will put 10. It means we will have 10 elements. So if I print the int array length, it will be int array dot length. So if we test this, we're going to find int array dot length is equal to 10, and even we don't even put any value here. So now if I want to assign values, I can put int array at index 0, and then I can assign any kind of value. So we can actually make a for loop for int I equal to 0, I smaller than int array dot length I plus plus. So we can make the assignment of some random value here, math dot random multiplied by 10, so I will put some value between 1 and 10, and then I will cast to int. Okay, and then I can make a for loop showing all the elements of the array. So here we can see all the elements of the array. So now we can see all the elements of the array. So here you can see all the elements of the array, and you can see that we have some random values assigned. So as you can see here, we have allocated 10 elements. And for example, if you want to access an element outside the bound, we're going to have an exception here. So array out of bound exception, because I wanted to access more than the allocated length, which is only 10 elements. So in some cases, when we don't know the number of elements that we want to create, we can actually use an array list. So an array list is another alternative of arrays which has a dynamic size. Okay, I'm going to call it int array list, and it's going here to take objects. So if I want to create an array list of integer elements, in this case I'm going to use integer class, which is a wrapper class for the primitive type int, and here it will be equal a new array list of integer. This is how we declare an array list. Of course, we have to import the array list from the package java.util, so we have to import it, and then we have an empty array list that contains 0 elements. So I can now print the number of elements of the array list. So we say array list.size. You can print the int dot size, and initially you will see that the size is equal to 0. Int ArrayList dot size is equal to 0. Why? Because we did not store any element, and this is the difference between the array and the array list. The array should allocate in advance a certain number of elements that we cannot change. So here we cannot even add more than 10. We cannot even change the length during the program. And here the size will be dynamic. When we add element, okay, the array list size is going to change. So, for example, here we can add elements using add. For example, I'm going to add 3. Then add another element 5. Then, for example, minus 43. Okay, 13. And then I can print again the size. So you can see now I have added 4 elements. And if I print the size, I'm going to find the int array is equal to 5. Okay, if I remove an element, remove an element at index 2, for example, the second element, I will remove the third element because the index starts from 0. And then I can print the size of the array list because I have removed an element, so it becomes 3. So you can see that the size here is dynamic. When you add element, the size is going to increase, and when you remove element, the size is going to decrease. You can also print all the elements. Okay, int array list. So I can print it as an object here. Okay, let me print it before removing and after removing. So here it's before removing. You can see now I have 4 elements. All the elements that I have added, 3, 5, minus 43, and 13. And you can see they are shown in the order of insertion into the list. And then when I remove the second element, so the second element was this one. This is index 0, this is index 1, and this is index 2. So minus 43 was removed, and then the int array list has only 3 elements. So array list is another alternative or array which is dynamic, which is very flexible. And what you have to make sure is that here you should use the wrapper class or a class and not a primitive type. For example, if you use an array list of int, it's not going to work. Okay, because here it's going to only look for classes. Okay, this is a generic class. We're going to see this in the future lecture in more details. We can also, for example, have an array list of any other type of classes. For example, I can have an array list of string. Okay, and we can add elements. Of course, when we have an array list of string, we have to add string elements. For example, I cannot add int value. So this is not accepted because here str array list will expect to have a string element. So I need to change this as a string, for example, like this, or just putting some other kind of string like names or any other thing. Okay, so we can add, we can remove, we can print the size. And another thing we can do, we can actually sort a list at a certain order, and for this we can use collections.sort. Collections.sort, I'm going to apply it to int array list. So here we are printing. Let me remove all of this now. I'm going to print the int array list before sorting. And after I sort, you will see that we have a different order after sorting. Okay, so you can see it starts from the minimum value to the maximum value. Here, before sorting, it's going to store the elements according to the order how they have been inserted into the list. And if I call collections.sort, and collection, this is a class that contains many static methods. One of them is the method sort. It allows to sort according to chronological order or it can also be applied for the string list. Okay, and the objective of sort is to sort the element according to their order. We can also print the max value, max of int array list. We can use collections dot max, and we can also print the minimum value. And as you can see, the max value is 13 and the minimum value is minus 43. And of course we can use collection.sort, collections.max, collections.mean on any array list that have elements which are comparable. It means they have a certain predefined order. So this was a brief overview to show the difference between arrays and array list. And more is going to come in the next lectures.